This is today's live on Equa Television International. Yes, TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. We're so excited and we are happy because it's that time of the week where we get to relax. We get to reflect on the week's activity and even spend time with our loved ones, our family, and everyone around us. And I know that some of you out there are already excited, but where do you draw the line between pleasure and morality? It's weekend, and oftentimes people shout. For some people, when they shout, "Thank God it's Friday," I mean, it's that time where they unwind, and whether it is morally right or wrong, people don't care. They just want to have fun, enjoy their lives, and then just wait for Monday and then start work all over again. Some people work so hard from Monday to just keep like gather money save so that by weekend they are going to have a lot of pleasure. But then today we're going to be discussing not just pleasure but also morality. Where do you draw the line? As children of God, is that what is expected of us, to have pleasure and then forget about morality? Or amidst the pleasure, amidst the happiness, the joy, the merriment, should we be cautious of what is expected of us, like what is morally right, and then make sure that we don't cross the line? My name is Joyce Jakada. We're live on Facebook and YouTube at Equa Television International. We'd like you to be part of this conversation by not just liking this show, but also commenting. I have Jemima and Prudence. Like, it's the ladies' hangouts this morning, and it's
Good
been a
morning.
cold morning in the city of Jos. No wonder Prudence is well covered, but myself and Jemima had some coffee, so
We're covered with the blood of Jesus.
on Christ the solid rock we stand.
Well, mine goes way beyond the cold weather. I'm a
Okay.
little under the weather, but
Mm. You're good, you're fine.
yes.
So let's talk about pleasure. Let's talk about morality, and then let's bring these two words together. But before we look at in practice pleasure and morality, I would like us to just give some definition of pleasure and then morality, like your perspective on these two terms, so that people can understand us better.
Okay, I would say pleasure is a way of having fun, doing things in a good way that speaks to you, because my way of pleasure is not yours. So doing things in your own way that speaks to you, in a calming way, you're able to have fun with yourself or with people, and just like you said, today is Friday, so this is a way to just calm down and relax with your loved ones and all of that. So it is something that is applicable to you, that is way beyond just the up and down of the world. You just want to really have fun and be calm, be yourself. When we talk about morality, there are manners, they are a set of standards that over the years you have worked with, you have adopted. Can be manners that you have adopted for yourself or your family or a society or a culture, just a group of people that have accepted that, and it has worked for them time and time again. You grew up with that kind of morals, that kind of manners, those kind of attitudes, and you're able to inculcate it in your day-to-day activities. Those are moralities. And then since you said we should just give a definition, I'll stop.
Okay. Prudence.
All right. So, for one, pleasure is something that you just find joy doing. I don't. I don't really know how to explain. I think the word pleasure in itself is like pleasure, but it's just something that you do at ease to ease yourself, or something that you just do that gives you a certain form of fulfillment and comfort. Yes, that's what I would look at pleasure as. Something that would just give you that fulfillment, that pleasure. Something that would keep you at ease wherever you are, whether you are in tension or not, you're at ease. You have a calming sensation anytime you're doing. For some people, for one thing I love doing, I love to bake. That's pleasure to me. It just, at the end of the day, when that thing that you're baking just comes out looking good and nice, you're just like, a fruitful day. Yes, that's pleasure. That's someone's pleasure. For someone, is just play music and just enjoy himself. Another person will prefer to go out, and so it's just something that communicates to you and gives you that form of ease. That's what I would see pleasure as. And morality is, I don't want to use the whole acceptable norm, because to an extent some people really don't accept it, but it is actually the acceptable norm of an environmental community, a group of people. Morality sometimes differs from family to family. What you see as moral in this family, another family sees it as being immoral. So that's why it is quite a controversial thing. But morality in itself is what people see to be good, behaviors that they see to be good, behaviors that they see that would mean that you are a collected person, behaviors that would tell people that you're someone who knows what he is doing or what she is doing, and that when the approach that you have to certain things is because of that stand, those values that you have kept close. So that's morality for me.
And a lot of times, in as much as morals are different from family to family, you find a common ground in all of the morals. There are certain general morals that cuts across every family,
Yes.
every culture, every belief, and all of that, because this family adopted it and they feel is okay. This one's adopted this culture, this society, this country, and then they all work together. But then there's
certain things are acceptable by all.
Yes,
I've had
yes.
people say, when you say something is right and something is wrong, somebody will ask you from which standpoint. For some people, they tell you what is relative, the word morality. What you see as right from this person's standpoint might be wrong. It's just like a believer and a non-believer. So what a believer is seeing as right, a non-believer is seeing as wrong. What an unbeliever is seen as right, a believer is seen as wrong. So
Just
some
like
people
seeing
tell
the
you,
number 9 and 6.
do you
Those
understand?
on that side are
We say
seeing
we are
6.
seeing 9,
Those here are seeing 9.
But then, coming from the biblical perspective, you see, when you talk about pleasure, generally, pleasure has to do with something that gives you joy. It has to do with joy. It has to do with goodness. And no wonder some of us that are named Joys, we give some people joy. I don't understand why this look. When people come in contact with us, we give them joy. We give them pleasure. So you see, pleasure generally has to do with joy. And when somebody said, I have joy in my heart, like I'm feeling this sense of happiness, there's this sense of goodness. So pleasure has to do with goodness, it has to do with joy, it has to do with some people say fun, enjoyment, and all of that. And the Bible made us to understand that God created everything for his pleasure. Nature, man, everything he created was for his pleasure. And he expected his creation as well to enjoy this pleasure, like to enjoy his creation. So morality, on the other hand, and that is why when you talk about pleasure, I'm going to have fun, I'm going to enjoy myself, I'm going to have some joy, goodness, and all, some people will be looking at you like, so it's like it has been so abused that when you talk about pleasure, people will be like, this one I want to go and commit sin. and that is the idea in their head.
It's because over time some words have been adopted by the wrong meanings. For instance, if you say you want to please yourself, a lot of people just think another way. It's like a different language on its own. It's like you're saying something entirely vulgar, but in a very subtle way. So there are a lot of things that people have over time misused. They've changed meanings of a lot of things. You find the language on the streets is different from the language that you find at home. You say some things at home and it's like very innocent, but when you go outside and you're saying it, people are looking at you like, okay, what is this girl? So over time, people, I think it's Joyce that said it on this show a lot of time, we have let go of morality so much so that even innocent words are now used to depict immoral things. And because these things have happened, when you make innocent conversation or you make innocent statement, people just entirely look at it in the negative because,
Yes.
oh well, that's what the world sees it
Mhm,
as. So
mhm,
the whole issue of pleasure and morality, as you earlier said, is like two sides of a picture. One side is this and the other side is this, and people are looking at it this way and other people are looking at this way, and because of that inconsistency, you barely find a common ground when you're talking about pleasure and morality. um for some sects of Christendom faith would tell you that you shouldn't do certain things because it gives you a certain form of pleasure, and the other sects are telling you that there's nothing wrong with it. It's not a crime to be happy about something. It's not a crime that you dress up nicely and you're just pleased that you're dressing beautifully that morning. That's not a crime. But another sect will tell you, no, if you wear this kind of attire, it is absolutely wrong. Li- there are just a lot of controversies around this thing. But this, for some people, if I dress up nicely, it doesn't mean I have any intention towards anybody. I'm just dressing up nicely to give myself more confidence, so that when I stand before people, I can be able to talk with confidence, or I value myself because I know what I came out with. So this is just one thing about pleasure. A lot of times people misunderstand what pleasure in itself truly should be, and we tend to move out of the moral because that is what we perceive as pleasure.
It's just because people just abuse it, not like they don't have a sense of understanding. Because even though partly it's because they don't have sense of understanding what it is. Some people think that when you mention pleasure, it's entirely bad, it's evil. But God, these two words, pleasure, morality, they are connected, created by God. I know some people will be surprised with oh, you mean pleasure is great, like created by God. And that is why we say pleasure and morality. When you talk about morality, like there's an acceptable standard. And that is why God encouraged that we have pleasure in his creation. Like he created the trees, nature, enjoy it, find joy in them. And that's why there are people that, like, when the weather changes, they, even when weather does not change, they go out, they travel certain recreational centers, and just so that they can have pleasure, admire this creation by God and all. You can find pleasure in your fellow human. Like you see, you interact. Sometimes we play music. These are gifts from God, and you enjoy it. The sounds of the birds and all of that. God created all of these things for our pleasure. But where is the missing point if you do it outside of the acceptable standard? Because when you talk about morality, is you experiencing pleasure within the confine of the standard that God has given you. Enjoy it, but under his law. By the time you leave God out of it, and you're saying, I'm having pleasure, I'm enjoying myself, there's some form of joy, that means you are committing sin. Because imagine somebody saying that, oh, I'm going to have fun today, I'm going to enjoy my life like it's my life, I will marry and all of that, and you go drinking, you go smoking, you go abusing drugs and all of that. There's no way you say that God is part of this your pleasure, because like it's clear that you should not do all of those things, and then you decided to go again, maybe committing adultery, fornicating, and you call it pleasure. Like, for you it might be pleasure, but because God is not involved in it, God has already clearly stated that no, this is wrong. As a young person, you're not married, you should not find pleasure in sleeping with another person, and then you are doing it. You can't call it pleasure. So we live in a world where people no longer regard pleasure within the standards or the moral standard that God has said. So people think that when you say pleasure, it is like having your life outside of God. And that is why for some people, when they say, I'm going to travel, I'm going to have fun, I'm going to have some pleasure, like they are saying, I'm going to sin. God, you are not involved. Now I've already gone to church on Sunday. Now from Monday to Friday or Saturday, it's my own time to enjoy myself, to have fun. So, but I would like us to really talk about some of the ways that people have abused the word pleasure, where people have misused the concept of the word pleasure. Like I said earlier on, TGIF, while some people are thanking God that, oh, we're going to rest from the long from the walk, that we've been doing from Monday to Friday. Some people are, oh, I'm going to have pleasure tonight. Like, come on, it's Friday night. Let's go and have some fun outside of what God wills for them. So let's talk about that.
Pleasure
One is to
and
drink to stupor.
Yes, true.
pleasure and morality are similar, and then they are different depending on how one sees it. They are similar because when you have pleasure, and then based on the morals you grew up with, you know when to curtail it. You know when it is passing the boundary. So you know at what point to draw the curtain. That is where the similarity comes in. So in as much as you are having pleasure, you are enjoying yourself, you are doing what you think you love doing, you know when it is going out of bound. But then the difference is just what you said now. People don't want you to spell out what they should do because they feel it is their life. You are not God. You were not the one that gave me the life. And even if you are God, you gave me the life. So let me use it the way I want to use it until you decide to
There's
take it
something
back.
about people
Then-
saying you are not God. Like when you are not God, don't even
Yes.
come and
Even if you are God,
God.
moreover,
So it's
you are
more
not
like a statement that is used to justify
what
like
they
a
are
wrong.
doing. Yes, and that is what brings about the differences. You cannot decide that you want to have pleasure outside of the confines of morality. Be it your personal morality, the family, the culture, because you find people going out of their cultural zones and then feeling like, okay, they have arrived. This is the wider world. Nobody would even see me do it. Even if they see me, I am not within that box of my cultural people. So let me do what I want to do. Some would give you reasons and say, okay, this is the only time I have to do what I need to do. Once this time passes, I don't have any other time because I'm going back to where I belong. That is why people would go to school, they'll go to tertiary institutions and then live terrible, wayward, wild lives because they are feeling like, okay, I've always been at home. I've always been under the eyes and judgment of people. Now I am out of these things. Let me live the life I want. So does that go to say that the pleasure you've been having all along have been fake? Or it has not been up to the standard that you have always thought for yourself. So you find people doing a lot of things that are outside the confines of what they were brought up to do. These are things that they are not, they did not adopt to do in their culture. Now, when they do all of this, they want to go back and play the victim, or not victim per se. They want to go back and play the role they have been playing before that time. That is why someone in school is living a different life. When he goes back home, he's living a different life. In fact, I have seen people that wear different clothes in school, do different things, and then when they go back home, they have clothes for home and they have the ones for school. A lot of them have been caught in the web because they died in that kind of pleasure exploration. Some have had second chances and have gone back to attach morals to whatsoever pleasure they have had. But a lot of times I feel people just want to experience everything, to explore. And in the course of exploration, you may not have that time to want to go back, and others don't even learn from other people's experiences. Okay, well, you did it like this because you were not wise enough. When it comes to my turn, I will do better, and you will see. And when
say
it
she
gets
was
to
foolish, that was why she died. She was foolish, that was why she was used for ritual.
and you will
She
go
doesn't
and do
have
the
sense.
same thing.
you know, the response here is, I'm not the person that you used to know. I'm an entirely different person. But to answer your question, it's just that when I said earlier that a lot of times we perceive pleasure as two different things. So someone asked me a question like 3-5 years ago, asked me, what do you do for fun? And I said, well, I read novels. I love to listen to music, so I would just sit at home or with friends. We just listen to music, read novels, and sometimes watch movies. And he said, no, that's boring. That's not fun. I'm like, okay, so what do you expect me to do as what do you classify as fun? He said, no outings. I said, we do go for picnics. They're like, no, not that. Don't you go clubbing and things
Your
like
life
that?
is boring.
I'm like, but
You didn't mention you go
that
for
kind of-
Bible studies.
prayer meeting.
That is an outing.
It is actually.
Because out of the house.
It is, but honestly, that is it. But look at it. For that person, the fact that I did not say clubs or
Date
nights,
movies,
exactly.
movies,
cinemas. I did not say anything like that. So you
Sleepovers.
automatically thinks that I don't have fun. It's like I live a very antisocial and detached life from people. But that's one thing that people need to understand. Pleasure doesn't necessarily mean what everybody terms as acceptable or what you
doesn't
see.
mean sin.
Pleasure is not sin. It's not
No,
sin.
It's not.
Pleasure is not sin. I have a few friends that we recommend books to each other. Then we read it and we come and exchange our experiences reading those books. So like, oh, did you see what that person did in that book? And you're like, oh wow, okay, great, and all that. Fun, pleasure. We've already created a circle here. This is we're socializing as well. We're making friends and things like that. And tomorrow when we're talking about books and another friend who loves books too comes close and she's like, oh, or he's like, okay, recommend these more books for me and things like that. You find fun, you get company and like that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go outside and go extreme or go overboard. But what the society today terms as pleasure is when you're going overboard. It's when you tell someone like, oh, I'm going for the weekend and you go to your boyfriend's house.
Yes.
It's when it's weekend and everybody say, okay, so where are we turning up today? And everybody just goes to club, let's go drink to stupor, and they're literally dragging. Recently my sister and I were walking in the evening. We rarely do that. Around 7 p.m. we're coming back home and we saw a group of 5 friends dragging their 6th friend on the ground because he was drunk. So is that what I want? No. That's not pleasure to me, because tomorrow I'll wake up with a very terrible headache, hangover. So you're talking about a lot of things that have pros and cons. You think that you are high and you're going all haywire and you're just excited, but dopamine is not okay. The level of dopamine that you get when you're pleased about something is, there's a regular one that when you're doing something you love doing, it just gives you a certain form of relaxation that you find ease and you just sleep right. But for some people, you're trying to trigger it with other things, and at the end of the day it becomes addictive. So you find people that are addicted to drugs, addicted to alcohol, addicted to sex, addicted to a lot of things, because they've gone overboard due to, okay, I'm looking for something that would please me, so you go overboard about it. And because anytime you go overboard with something, there's always repercussion. So within the confines that you find yourself, find pleasure there.
And you know,
you
a lot
don't
of
have to
people
move over it.
have found themselves in a confused state. They don't even know what gives them pleasure. So
Yeah,
they
very
are
true.
confused. When you find these people that are confused, it's very easy to just drag them to your
Very
own
true.
side, because you are already seeing that they don't know what they want. So when you find this kind of people, instead of letting them understand that, okay, finding pleasure is a personal thing, you have to really sit down and find what works for you. It's not about, oh, this thing gives joy as pleasure, I'll do it. This one gives prudence pleasure, that is it. And then you are trying to gather a lot of things that would not even minister or speak to you as an individual. So it is for you to find out that thing that gives you pleasure. And you don't just sit down and find it in 5 minutes. You have to go through your mind, search through your heart. What is it that I do that really I find joy in doing it? I feel so good doing it. So you find people that are confused, looking out, okay, what is it that is giving this group and this group pleasure? And then they are trying to adapt it. That is what causes a lot of confusion for people. So if you go out and mingle with people, if you cannot beat them, join them. These ones are larger, so wow, the pleasure will be larger. Let me join them.
You see, a lot
of this confusion comes because people don't know who they are. People don't know why they are created. People don't know what's like the purpose of their existence. Like I always say, if you've come to the point, or if you reach the point of knowing who you are,
your standpoints, your values, your principles, the purpose of your creation, then I think 90% of your problem, 99, is being solved. Because you won't find yourself living a confused life. You won't find yourself allowing what you term pleasure to be defined by another person. Because knowing why I exist is enough for me. Because if I've already come to that point of knowing why I'm created, that means I will align myself with the purpose of my creation. The Bible made us to understand that we're created for His pleasure. So what does He expect of us to give Him pleasure? I've had people said that, a lot of people have definition of what pleasure is.
Yes, exactly.
Someone said, it's just funny how they even quote the Bible to suit their erroneous lifestyle. That even the Bible, this is somebody that wants to keeps taking advantage of young girls sleeping around and all. And he said, even the Bible said, go into the world and multiply. You just did there, the whole your body. Be fruitful and multiply. So enjoy yourself. Another person said, you are there keeping yourself. What if you die? That means you did not enjoy anything like that. So look at the notion. Look at people's ideology and perspective about enjoyment, about pleasure. Like I said earlier on, pleasure is about joy, is about goodness. So who told you that person that is going to Bible study, going for prayer meeting, going for church activities, having some forms of book reviews with his or her friends is not having pleasure? It's you that think that pleasure can only be in alcohol. It is just you that think that pleasure can only be in smoking. It is only you that think that pleasure can only be derived in sex.
Or gossip,
or lying, or backbiting, or betraying. There are people that are not happy if somebody is happy.
Yes.
Like they come to work and everybody is excited. They just get pissed off. And they go back home, they start cooking what to do so that they can ensure that this one is fighting this one, that one is fighting.
There has to be a drama going on.
Do you understand? So they plant seeds of bitterness, seeds of hatred. Like they find pleasure in that. Have you not met those
Gives
people
them
that
joy.
they are so happy when the place is chaotic. And then that's where they derive their pleasure, unfortunately. There are other people that their pleasure is in them having their quiet time. Like it's my alone time with God, studying, praying, listening to songs. Like that is my own pleasure. So you cannot define what people's pleasure should be.
Other
Talking about those
pleasures, sleeping.
those yes, sleeping. So but don't sleep at work, because
Sleep all day and join people to sleep
if you
at
sleep
night.
at work, you'll be suspended. Don't sleep at work. There are some organizations that have the policy no sleep during work hours. There are some people
that's actually the acceptable
norm. But for some people, they tell you that sleeping is my hobby, so they don't care where it is. Imagine somebody going and obtaining a security job, and then you are sleeping
is your hobby,
and
are
you say, "Tom, that's what I do with my leisure."
So you are paid to sleep.
You understand?
Your leisure. This is office hours.
You understand? So for somebody, that's what gives him pleasure, sleeping. So, but then, at what point do you sleep? It's just funny how that's where someone derives his pleasure. But you see, it is a gift from God. We should not allow the devil redefine what pleasure should be. I've seen people do things in the name of pleasure that led to their end or ruined their life. Like you talk about school, tertiary institution, especially. You live your life, your house with like some sets of standards that have guided your life from childhood to where you are, and you get to the university, polytechnic, college of education and all, and your friends are telling you that you've been living a bored life. Like this is what pleasure is. I remember back then in the hostel, a young lady will come back. Unfortunately, she's late right now. She will come back studying law. Very young, vibrant, energetic young lady. In the night, around 10, the hostel is quiet. People are sleeping, and she was just like, okay, 10, hostel is still lively. People are making noise and walking around. She would just shout, hostel girls, I'm about going for a club. Who cares to join me? Just trying to get attention. And before you know, she's out. She will come back in the night. Like around 1, 2, 3, 4, between the early hours of the morning, while everywhere is quiet, this girl will come back and shout that, hostel girls, I'm back, I had fun.
Who missed me?
Who missed me? Exactly. And she'll shout all of that, and we'll be like, what kind of wahala is this one? Say you went, you had your phone. Like that is your definition of. So which one is waking everybody? Some of us are
enjoying our
Do you
sleep.
understand? Like unfortunately, like I said, like her night came in the morning or at noon. she died just some few years ago. So for somebody like that is fun for him. When I get to university, get this virgin, go for weekends. That is pleasure. In fact, it's almost like something is wrong with you when it's Friday and you are
Yeah, I
there.
know.
Where are you going to? Nowhere.
Hmm.
Car, you
It's-
never
it's
your
actually-
eye never open.
It's actually funny because in the hostels around that time, Fridays, Saturdays are like literally, the hostels are literally empty.
Everybody have
Like,
gone for
everybody
to
has
his
gone
father's house.
somewhere. Who goes to their father's house for weekends? You can actually count how many of them. But here's what it is. When we talk about morality and we talk about pleasure, a lot of times automatically it's like our minds are totally geared towards thinking that pleasure cannot be found within the confines of morality. But one thing that I know from the scriptures is that delight, pleasure, joy, peace, and love are 5 words that were constantly mentioned in the scriptures. Constantly. But what you find interesting about it is that when all these words are being used, they're almost always used towards the direction of God. One favorite, in fact, that's what I'm using as a wallpaper presently. I don't know how it happened, but it just works here. It says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and He'll give you the desires of your heart." So a lot of people go and tell you that sometimes the desires of your heart is just okay. So at the end of the day, I'm happy with what I'm doing. But when you delight and you're connected to God and you find joy, what does delight mean? It means that you find joy, peace. There's just this lovely aura around you when you are with God. You know, when you are in that sphere, there was a point in my life that I lost that for a period of time. Oh goodness, that was one of the worst times of my life. Because I was like, there's a detach, but where is it? I tried this, tried that. You're not finding the joy
pleasure, the
anymore.
joy
There's
is
no
not there.
pleasure. So it's like, what exactly am I even living for? So, but when you are in tune with God, everything gives you delight. You would see water, not even a waterfall, just water flowing, and you're like, oh, this is beautiful. You would see grass grow, and it is beautiful. You would find pleasure in it. There's beauty when you're connected with the Creator. It is easier for you to find pleasure.
And
In the
that's
created.
that's the best definition of and the best example of what pleasure is. And that's why I said God created it. And He created it for us to enjoy, to find joy
Exactly.
and goodness in it.
Exactly.
But we allow the world to redefine it and that is why we are struggling. That's why we have all the confusion. You think
True.
that you find pleasure in women, you've had all the women, and then you still like you've not reached that point of satisfaction.
True.
You think you can find it in alcoholism. You've tried, there's no brand that you've not tried, and still you don't have peace. You thought, oh, I can find it in gossip, perhaps in backbiting, in betrayal, and then you see that you did all of that and you are still not finding joy. You might think that, guy, the world will give me that. Let me just listen to some secular music, and you see that you're not still finding joy. And no wonder King Solomon said, after acquiring everything, he said, vanity upon vanity. Like everything is vanity. For some, they say, okay, I think I should just become a politician. That way I'll have free access to the national cake, embezzle money, accumulate for myself, keep some in Swiss account, build some, have some investment in other countries. That way I'm going to have some forms of pleasure. And you do that, and there's still no satisfaction. You have to work with some security people around you. Yesterday we're talking about some gates, 10 gates in your house, because you have not find that pleasure. Because what gives you pleasure, there shouldn't be fear in pleasure. Once it's like you reaching that point of rest. It's like you think about somebody that is lost in worship, like nothing matters again to you. And that is why we're saying that pleasure that you're thinking that is pleasure, it is defined by the world to distract you from enjoying what God created and
To be real
intended for
pleasure.
you. There's actually no pleasure You can't find pleasure. Whatever the devil gives you is just momentary. Like, okay, I'm going to, when I get this, somebody was asking his father the meaning of life. And then he said, oh, maybe if I get job. And he got the job, still he could not trace the meaning of life. No, maybe when I get married, when I, like, he started from, okay, you can find the meaning of life by getting to school. He went through all the levels and he's still, like, he's still asking himself the meaning of life. Okay, maybe when I get a job, he got it. When I get married, okay, perhaps we need a child when we get a child. And eventually he did not find the meaning of life in that. And that is why pleasure, real pleasure, can only come when you are connected to the source. When you are connected to God, then you find pleasure. Because he said he intended that we delight ourselves in all his creation. Enjoy relationship. You're not an island, and that is why you don't exist alone. By the time okay, if God decided that, Adam, I created you, so just leave, he knew that there wouldn't be pleasure. Like, even leaving him with just the plants and all of that, he was still, and say, let's create woman. He did that, and everything was also for his own pleasure. Like, enjoy relationship. Enjoy all of these things that I've created. Name the animals, like, have them around you, and but you see, the devil redefined all of these things, and that is why some people today, they are having like sexual relationship with animals instead of like enjoying the creation of God. Like, people are going into different kinds of evil things in the name of pleasure. But we've seen the end of, like, most of them. There are people, yes, they were talking about how that this getting rich syndrome, how that some people think, okay, let me just sacrifice my father or my mother, that way I'll get money and I'll find pleasure. But at the end of the day, they did that. You are now asked to bring your father, you are now asked to bring your sister, or you succeed in doing all of those things, and you're still asked to give this and that. At the end of the day, because you are either being killed or something, or you run mad. And so where is the pleasure in all of that? You say that, oh, the soft life is by going into prostitution. When I sleep around, at least I'll get soft money. You will get all of the money. At the end of the day, you are treating one STD or the other.
With all the money you got.
A story was told of a young girl who was used for rituals. She was it vomiting or something was coming out of her private part. She thought that pleasure can be derived by sleeping around. But at the end of the day, something was put in her spiritually. And then from then, she kept struggling. Some of them end up losing their lives. But in their mind, before going into that, they thought that was where they would find pleasure. And I was telling someone recently, I said, some of these things that you engage in that you think is soft life, I mean, it's just a way of leading you to doom. Why will I engage myself in certain activities that I will lose my peace and freedom? Why is it that people who decide to sleep around have to wait till everywhere is dark, or have to keep hiding? You have to wind up your cars. You have to put on a tinted glass so that nobody will. Like, why would you? How would something be geared towards giving you joy and pleasure, and yet you are hiding?
So much effort.
Do you understand? You have to hide. You have to look for hideout hotels. You have to look for
something you cannot
even
do.
with all that. You still get caught.
And I was sometimes. Like, how do people think that finding pleasure, already you are smoking and you think is the best thing for you to do, and you're finding pleasure? Why do you have to go under, like, go to the bush or behind one rock, or go to the river, or go to some kind of odd places? How is that pleasure when you have to hide?
You know, you were just saying this, and I remember the story my mom was telling me. So while they were growing up, some of the people they knew in their community, I can't remember exactly how the story went, but it was about a man smoking with his friends, and he was just smoking, and they were just enjoying themselves and laughing and chatting away, and see his mom coming over, and everybody says, "Hi, see your mother." Then he decides to put the cigarette inside his pocket.
Because if he throws it, you see it.
Exactly, if he throws it, she'll see it. So she comes and she says, "No, remove it. Just remove it. Don't burn yourself. I've seen you already." But my point is, you go an extra mile. You're trying to hide a lot of things. How much of pleasure do you find in things like that? When you can actually find pleasure in certain things in broad daylight. For some people, it's to visit the gallery. That I find quite weird. But I personally find that quite weird, because you would just be covered with pictures and all that. But that's
That's
someone's
another person's
pleasure.
pleasure.
Because it's
That's another
appreciating the creativity.
Just like you love novels and you're
Yes.
carried away.
Because
you
somebody will
also
tell you,
love
how will
that.
I sit down and be reading from morning till night?
Exactly.
But for somebody just painting,
Yes,
drawing, doing all of these
yes.
forms of art, and other people coming in to watch, to appreciate this creativity, like this is a gift from God. And you see people coming into the gallery, going around watching, appreciating, and even buying self.
Yes.
Some of the clothes in fact, all the clothes we are wearing are works of art.
Art.
So that's why God said, see, like all these things I created is for my pleasure, and I also created it so that you too, my creation, can delight yourself in them. But you see, like I said, it is the devil's idea to make us understand pleasure differently, and that is why we just think that pleasure can only be seen. Like when you play some gospel music and you're excited, you're singing, somebody see you, what are you finding? Like there's no pleasure. Somebody will tell you, what are your type of music? And you say, I like some cool, calm gospel music or worship, and person look at you, normal. Like if you would like, you should say Afrobeat, party mix, party jams, and all of that. That is pleasure. That's the only way you can find pleasure. When you
Sometimes
talk
it
about,
just sounds like
there's
noise.
actually praise and worship Sunday in my church, or I'm going for prayer meeting. Are you normal? No, fun should only be in clubs. Fun should only be when you are around friends, you drink, and sometimes they even tell you drink alone, like take alcohol alone. That's not pleasure. Have friends, and as you're doing it, you are discussing, saying all the wrong things, supporting all the erroneous lifestyle, motivating each other to continue.
Plain
And
truth
no
and
wonder they had
yes.
to drag one to the house.
Plain
Like,
truth and yes.
they applaud you till you reach your doom. There's a man that a story was told of a man that went to eat, was drinking, and then he ordered fish, and they brought the fish. And I think it's someone that does not really eat pepper, but of course he's having fun. He called it pleasure. And while he was drinking, they brought the fish, very pepperish, and he was eating, and he was struggling with the pepper. Instead of uncle to say, Kai, maybe at this point I need to leave, he kept until he fainted. And that's how his wife got to know, because they had to. And unfortunately for him, he left the house. He didn't even leave food, but he went to drink and even eat fish. So there are a lot of things that people call pleasure, but in the true sense of it, these things are only leading to your doom. But you see, we're talking about morality. What is the acceptable standard? God says that this thing I created is for your pleasure. Some people quote the Bible and say even the idea of making alcohol is God that gave them the wisdom. You keep hearing people using that it's God that gave the wisdom and all of that. But then, are you having this pleasure within the standard of God? Are you having it with God in picture, or you are having it like outside God? Because as far as God is not concerned, some people tell you that let's leave God out of this. Anything you do that you have to leave God out of it, it is not pleasure. It's not the pleasure He created. It is the pleasure that the world give you. And do know that the pleasure that the world is giving is not intended, like it's not intended for your own good, but it's definitely going to lead to destruction. That is why the story of the rich man that said, oh, I'm going to marry, I'm going to have fun. Like that night, he didn't live to see the next morning. So what kind of pleasure are you calling pleasure, or are you enjoying, or are you deriving joy from? Is it the one of inflicting pain on other people? Because that's where another person is deriving his own pleasure, inflicting pain. Is that what you call pleasure? Is that what the Bible expects of us? Because the Bible made us to understand that we should love even our enemies. Like we should do good. So if you have to inflict pain to have pleasure, then that's not God's plan.
And
you said do
the
good.
truest.
Sorry, let me just say
the
that.
truest. Okay.
So you talked about doing good. One interesting fact about having pleasure is that doing good in itself is a form of pleasure.
True.
There's this joy that you derive from doing good to someone. You know that.
Helping
that,
humanity.
Yes. And that is one very underrated form of pleasure. People will prefer to withhold the good and just accept any good that anybody decides to give to them rather than doing the good. And you miss out that pleasure, that joy that comes with doing good. That's what I wanted to say before I forget.
And the truest form of pleasure is to know your purpose for existence.
True.
Because if you want to know why you are there, then whatever comes, you take it by the horn. So if you know that you were created for His pleasure, then you should know that whatever He has placed within your reach is for His pleasure. You don't have to go out of whatever he has made available for you to find something else.
True.
Everything he kept for you is for your pleasure. It's just like domestic and wild animals. You have all domestic animals within your reach, but you feel you know them too much, so you want to go into the wilder animals. So you know that they will do more harm for you than good. So we were created for his pleasure, and whatsoever he gave us, it is the best for us. It's just like having a little child. Small boys, when they are growing up, they want to create things. You see them either making paper boats or making cars and putting a rope and dragging them, or having this worn out tires and pushing them. It gives them joy. So they won't make a car, put a rope and be pulling the car, and the car will say, I don't want to go this way, I want to somersault and be dragging myself that way. That is not why the owner created it. It created it so that it can walk on its tires and be pulled. But when you get to a point that you are saying, I know better than he who created me. Someone created a car, he put everything in it. You, the car, cannot know more than that person that brought you into existence. So he knows the best for you. Your purpose is to give him pleasure. Everything he gave you is to give him pleasure. So why don't you just do that and enjoy the process of doing it? A lot of times we just want to go out of our zones and just do better. No, this is more than enough already.
Very true.
Yeah.
I've seen people engage themselves in services. Some go to orphanage home. Some just go to render services like teaching. Some go to help the needy. Some go to assist the aged. Some use their money to help those that like don't have the means, the needy. Like all these forms of service gives them like pleasure, and that is why God also gave you the resources so that you can also be of help to other people, so that you can impact other people's life, so that you can put joy in like and smiles on their faces. And for some people, that is what gives them, like that's what they derive pleasure from. So can we also look into the aspect of like service as a form of pleasure, beyond you just enjoying what was created, like you just having the
giving back.
pleasure? Can you also think of giving back? There are some people that they've decided that their creativity, they're going to engage themselves in certain creative activities to bring pleasure to others. Like we talk about art. Some people are into art, like they come up with a lot of drawings, design, and then so amazing and
Some are into
beautiful.
poetry.
Some are into poetry. Some are into music. The music you play, you enjoy. Sunday morning that you don't go to church, you are playing music, and it's somebody's like creative idea. So that, and then you are deriving pleasure from. Can you also think of doing something that will bring honor to the name of the Lord? Like you were created for a reason, and like we said earlier on, like we did not come from nowhere. And by the time you know the purpose of your creation, it makes it easy for you to live right and also have pleasure within the confine of like the standard that like God has set for us. Like there should always be boundaries. If in whatever pleasure you are deriving, have some forms of boundaries. If I'm having pleasure, like my friends or my colleagues are dear, like God has made me understand that he created so that we enjoy relationship. But in enjoying the relationship, there should be boundary. You should make sure that you don't cross the line from discussing and appreciating God's gifts in your lives. Don't in a bid to enjoy it or appreciate it, now divert into gossiping, divert into backbiting, hating one or another. That's not the intention. So you must have boundaries, that if whatever I find pleasure in, God is not going to be honored with, then I should not dare it. There are people that we make as friends, and at some point they tell you, there's nothing wrong with this now, let's just go, it's just one night. Like, there's nothing wrong when you do this, it will not cause any harm. Now one night cannot mean anything. Perhaps there are people that have been doing it even before you. Like a young man was giving a story of how that his friend's wife was telling him in the friend's absence that Andy can just do this thing now, like have sex. And he said, how can you see that? Like, you're married to my friend, you are married and to my friend. Like, even if it's not to my friend, you are married. I'm not married to you. The sex in itself, that like I'm not married to you, is wrong. And then you're now married to my friend. And you like that she kept sending him messages when he comes to visit, to just greet her and the children. Like, she kept making some moves, not until that fateful day that she now opened up that can they just do this thing that he has been refusing to acknowledge. And he said what? And she was outspoken about that, and he said he can't do that. Like, why would she say that? And he said, see, this thing, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just to have fun and all. That he thinks, he said, perhaps we are even like we are members of the same church, we're all of that. And she said, who told you that other people in the church don't need to do this kind of things and all? It's just for us to just catch fun. So people will tell you that, look at you, you're good looking, look at your body, you're this, like, use it to this thing that you're not doing. If you die, that's the end. Like, it will rotten. Like, you hear people say all of these things. It is amazing how that when the devil wants you to live a kind of,
He goes all out.
he will go all out. He will come up with a lot of excuses, quote Bible for you, and tell you, even when he tempted, like Jesus was tempted, the scripture, like, but it was a scripture that he used and responded. So we must get to that point of reading and understanding, creating relationship with God, being intimate with him. That way, like, we're going to be saved from a lot of trouble. We'll find pleasure in him and the things that he created, rather than what the world is presenting as pleasure. So by the time they are looking at you like something is wrong with you for finding pleasure in prayer meeting, in Bible study.
But honestly, those are very interesting.
I mean, there are people that will go to church and I wish that this continues. They are singing or praising God, and you forget that there's any economic, there's any inflation, there's anything and all of that. That's what gives. And the moment you come out and you want to buy something, you tell yam is 10,001, and you're like, God. So you see that some of us derive pleasure in the things of God, and it gives joy that the world cannot even give. I've come to the point of even seeing that, most of these things that you call fun are just momentary.
Exactly.
No peace, no freedom. So why should I derive pleasure in something that my peace is seized, like my freedom is seized? Like why?
You even get to a point that you be wondering, what was I thinking when I was thinking this thing was fun? My
dad gave us a story, that when they were growing up, that he was just lamenting this one fateful day, how that my brother went out and came back later, and I was like, how you are just suffering yourself. Let me gist you something. When we were young, that's how we trek from our village to the next village in the name of party. You call it jumping. That you just trek from your village to another village just to go and jump, and then come back, trek again and go back. I mean, as at that time, that was pleasure for them. They did not even now tell him to even trek and go to like. So now you think that, just imagine what they tagged as pleasure then. Like on Sunday, you can't wait for Sunday, come bath up, wear your shoe, and then you trek to the next village. They will play music, everybody's jumping. After that, in the night, all of you trek back again. That's pleasure. So like, you want to go for a party, you want to go for a club, go and jump, drink all the alcohol, they will drag you home. Is that what you call pleasure? That you have to go out of your senses, do things that you will not know, and tomorrow you will regret. Some people say they don't want to even come out the next day because what they tag like pleasure disgraced them, made them do things that they don't even want to be seen. Imagine you being pushed on wheelbarrow home. Imagine that they had to call your family because you fell down at the market square or in front of the area or something. Like,
and someone was actually embarrassed because they stole about 50,000 naira on his body because he went and got drunk, and he ended up sleeping at the bar. And the next morning when he woke up, the money he had on him was gone. It was just stolen. And he was really embarrassed. He did not even know how to start facing his family members. Why would I go that extra mile to do certain things? And at the end of the day, I'm like, cover my face in shame, please. I can't do this. So they're just, there's just always a negative thing to all these things, because immediately you go out of the norm, out of the right thing that you're supposed to do, out of the confines of finding pleasure within God. My dear brother and sister, you would be embarrassed. You would be embarrassed. And and this kind of embarrassment is like someone would just make you naked in front of the public. That's basically
no, you
how
don't
it
want
is.
that. You really don't want that.
So you
Jemima,
should find out the best thing that gives you pleasure and make sure you stick to it, not changing every time. And then you should also be able to respect people's choices of things that gives them pleasure. Because I like this and you like something else doesn't mean I should judge and say your own choice
somebody that is
is
taking
bad.
alcohol to sleep on, I'll be saying,
No, I don't mean that.
I'm
I mean
happy.
positive positive
Within God's
pleasure.
standard.
Yes. So if we're all picking options that are within God's standard and we're not on the same page, it doesn't mean I should justify my own option as the best and yours not the best. We should respect people's, just like we are different, our opinions and our choices, our views of life are also different.
Very
So
true.
we should not feel like we have made the best and the final
Well
choice
said.
altogether.
Well said. Thank you, ladies. Like, it's been awesome discussing with you all there. Like, I had some form of pleasure here. So to our viewers out there, I'm sure that you had pleasure listening to us talk about pleasure and morality. Like, do know that pleasure is created by God for you. Have some joy and goodness, but it has to be within the standard of God. Soon as it goes outside of his standard, then something is wrong. The Bible made us to understand that we should rejoice in the Lord always, and again rejoice. So rejoice, have pleasure, have fun within the standard of God. And on this note, we say go have fun this weekend within the standard and the moral standard of God. So until we come your way next week with another package of today's life, you have a blessed weekend. Bye bye.